I just wasn't going to spread awareness with my ride. I was going to spread hope. It wasn't just me doing this for me, or to be contrary to some doctor who thought he knew my life and my body better than me. I was doing this ride for all the people at this conference who had acromegaly or any condition that made them feel like their life's course had just been completely detoured, who felt like they'd never get back on track again. Oh my God, I thought. Maybe I can make an impact. Maybe my actions can really inspire someone to take action. It'd be a shame if you let them down, said Bubba. I'd never truly looked at it this way before. I was just getting up and doing what I had to do for myself. Because for me, it was either get back on my bike and live, or stay on the couch in my purple hoodie and gray sweatpants and die. I wanted to live bigger and better than before. And damn it, I was going to live.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have a great author on the show today that's going to inspire all of us. It's amazing. Risa August is here. Her book, The Road Unpaved, Border to Border, with a brain tumor and a bike. Risa is here to share her story, her path, her journey, and we're all going to jump on two wheels and experience this road unpaved with our guest, Risa. Welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Well, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much.
Isn't technology fun? We meant to do this together, and my computer end blew up, and we missed our opportunity, but you came back. And I'm so happy you're back again, that we can actually do this together. Congratulations on the book, on your story, and everything great that's happening for you. Let's tell everybody, first of all, Risa, where are you in this big world of ours?
Yeah, so I'm based here in Colorado, and I am nestled in the foothills. And we just got like 4 feet of snow.
What?
A few days ago, and it's finally starting to melt. But yeah, I'm loving it here. This is where I am for now.
Okay, good. Amazing. So you have a book, I said, The Road Unpaved. I'm loving it so far. It's amazing. Tell us a little bit about your journey as an author. Where did this all start, where you said to yourself, I want to write something and I want to share my story in a book? How did this all come to be for you to start writing as an author?
Yes. Well, I've always wanted to write a book, and I've always had these ideas. And I would start and not finish. But it wasn't until 2018 when my whole life just was turned upside down. And I call it my big upheaval, and so I was diagnosed with a rare disease and a tumor at the base of my brain. So yeah, my life felt like it was in a big upheaval. But it wasn't until following brain surgery and they realized they didn't get the entire tumor. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute, what? What do you mean? I just thought I'd have the surgery and I'd go back to my life. And that's not at all what was happening. My whole body wasn't affected and it was changing. And I went from being an Ironman athlete to barely able to get off the couch. And I'm a research type of person. I love data and information. And there wasn't a lot out there about what I had. And I was like, I'm going to bring some awareness to this. Like, this needs some attention because I didn't have resources to make any kind of decisions. I felt like I didn't have a choice. And I might have made different decisions had I had more information. And so that was my thinking behind that. So doctors were telling me, you shouldn't do this, you can't do that. And I saw that as an invitation, I was like, okay, challenge accepted, and I also started to find my voice in this whole process as well. I started, asking more questions and wanting to know more. I deserved to know more about my disease, what all my treatment options were, everything. And so, like I said, there was not a lot out there, and I thought, I'm gonna bring awareness to this. And I didn't know how or what that meant. And so I started writing. And I started reaching out to people like, hey, can you post my story? Oh, and by the way, I'm riding my bike down the Pacific coast from Canada to Mexico.
Which is no small thing to say out loud. Come on. Like I think I can ride my bike around the block and I'd be tired, just so you know. So that's amazing. We're going to go back to that, but keep going.
Yeah. So, I would get turned away. I know my story's not unique. There's, I think a lot of the people listening could attest to this. Like, everyone has a story. Everyone faces challenges and adversity. And so I was, getting turned away a lot. But it wasn't until I reached out to a neuroendocrinologist who specialized in my disease, and I said, hey, I'm trying to bring attention to this disease, and I'm riding my bike from Canada to Mexico. And he was like, wait, what? And that's kind of how the writing started. Outside, like, I didn't think it was that interesting that I was doing this ride, because I'd always been an endurance athlete, and people do amazing things, conquering mountains and all kinds of things on the planet. I didn't think I stood out in any way. I was just doing me. And anyways, I started writing kind of short snippets about this journey, like training for this big ride. But what I started noticing was like the ride is what was getting attention, not my disease, not my tumor, not, my writing style. Like it was, people were fascinated by this ride. And suddenly this story felt urgent. It felt like, okay, if this is the way I'm going to draw attention to this disease, then this is how I'm going to do it. So it kind of evolved from there.
Okay, so let's jump back to this short ride that you took from Canada to Mexico. Have you ever done something that long before? Is this a common thing for you, or is this the first time that you've done something to that extent?
I would do a week-long bike tours that were maybe 500 miles, 300 miles, and they were more like casual and fun. And but I'd never done anything like this. This was 6 weeks long, 1,845 miles. So it was the longest event, and it was also post-surgery, post-radiation treatment. My body wasn't responding the same. As an athlete, I was very in tune with my body. I knew how to train, but that all went out the window. Part of this disease is muscle weakness, and there were complications with my surgery where I had to be very aware of my sodium intake and hydration and hyponatremia and all this stuff. So there were all these complications, not to mention the injections that I had to take along the way. And they're very complicated injections that have to be refrigerated and administered by a trained professional. And so there was just a lot to that I was now facing that added extra layers to something that might not have even fazed me in the past.
So you start your journey in Canada, near the Canadian border. So where was your actual starting point for the trip?
Right at the border, I stood. I could see I speak to this in my book in chapter 1, but I could see the Canadian flower beds, and I can, I was right there standing on the border, one leg in, one leg out at the Peace Arch there.
Yeah. So you get there. So, okay. And as well, you're not, I think when we first talked, I was questioning you with all kinds of questions about your trip. You didn't do this all by yourself, in the sense that there was no one around you, right? You mentioned you had some medical things that had to happen on your trip as well, but you weren't completely on your own. You were kind of in a group, but at the beginning of your trip, you weren't really focused on the group. You were more focused on your own journey. Is that right?
Yes. I can be bullheaded. Like, I'm a very independent person. And so I hired the van. So it was called a semi-supported trip, which I thought would actually be much easier for me. So about 10 people shared this van, and our gear was transported from the destination each day, which was a campground, and a different campground each day. And so I thought it would be easier to not worry about my gear. I wanted to take my bike with it, which is a really lightweight carbon frame road bike. It's not, in no way is it set up to be a touring bike where I can carry all my own gear. And so I thought this would be the easy thing to do. So in case I did have an emergency, there were people around. There was a van around. However, the van in no way helped us get from point A to point B. It wasn't what's called SAG support, where we can wave them down and be like, hey, can I have a ride, or can you fix my tire? Like, it was up to each individual to get them from point to point. And so I thought it would be like a peace of mind, but I just remember being like, oh my gosh, like, it's like, you have 10 different personalities all
right
working together. And we had no choice but to follow the van if we wanted our gear each day. And so on the days that were really hard, where I was like, oh my gosh, I could stay in my tent and maybe take the day off or something. Like, you couldn't. You had to keep going. You had to keep following the van. And then I remember I tried to arrange with the van to be on a rest day. I had to get into town. The urgent care was like, where I had to get my injection, was about 18 miles away, I think. And so I didn't want to ride on my rest day. So I arranged with the van to take me into town, but the van ended up getting into a slight accident the day before, and it had to go into the shop. So there was just things like that where, it wasn't always smooth sailing.
Wow. So, okay, you start off kind of on your own, but over the time, over the travels and the journey, the group kind of gels together, right? All these riders together. When you finished your race, what was your relationship like with the entire group then? How did it change?
That's a great question. Yeah. So, I started really opening up to, I started really asking myself, like, why am I so resistant? I think I wanted to prove to everyone that I can do this on my own. Like, just because I'm living with a tumor and I have this disease, I don't need anyone's help. Like, I'm doing this on my own. And, oh gosh, I feel myself getting emotional here. Um, but it's okay to get support. Yeah. It's okay to ask for help. And deep connection with others is actually one of my top values. And so I was asking myself, like, well, I love connecting. Like, why am I being so resistant? And so initially, I think I felt like I had something to prove, and if it's okay, like, that's just like this bullshit. Yeah. Like, I don't need to prove anything to anyone, and what mattered more to me was, the memories and connecting and really soaking in this incredible opportunity I was given.
So, okay, do you think you would be who you are today, understanding your life and all the things you've been going through, had you not done this trip and made those kind of connections and come to that realization that you need to do life in community? Like, would you be a different person had you not done this trip?
Oh, gosh, yes. Yes, in many ways. I'm not sure I can say how I would be a different person, but I know I'm a better person. I know it gave me confidence. I know it shifted my perspective in anything is possible. And it's all the way we look at things. It's all like the lens in which we view things. And so yes, absolutely. And I speak about one of the characters in the book, how he was kind of like an arch nemesis at first, and by the end he was my biggest advocate. So I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Yeah, I think it's all a matter, like, it really just shifted my perspective. And I went in thinking I was going to be like healed. Like this was going to be this soul journey, and I was going to have life figured out by the time I got to the end. And that was crap too.
Yeah.
Like, life just doesn't go away because you ride your bike for 6 weeks. And, but it provided an opportunity to really be reflective, to be with myself and around other people that they didn't have any clue, what was going on in my life. Well, until we got to know each other, but we could all just be. And so it really provided an opportunity for me to, in a way, find peace in myself so that I could face what was ahead of me.
Yeah. Because I feel like, Risa, when you talk about this, that you talk about the beginning of the race, you feel like you're going to do this on your own, you're independent, I can do this, I can handle this. I don't need the team, really. But by the end of it, you needed the team. You needed the relationship, you needed the community. That was something you valued at the end, probably more than you did at the beginning, really.
Absolutely.
But then when I'm thinking of a listener, Risa, that maybe is going to get that diagnosis or find out that there's a big mountain in front of them. They're going to walk into a doctor's office this week and hear things that make their world crumble in that moment. And they feel very alone, thinking, well, I can just handle this on my own. I don't need community. Like your road trip, I can do this on my own. I don't need anybody. I got this. But then through community with other people who maybe are on a similar path, that by being in community, you find strength. You find people who love and care for you. Even those you think would be your arch nemesis, as you mentioned, could be turned around and be your best ally.
Yeah.
I think that anyone facing a big diagnosis, some bad news this week, could pick up your book and find a connection with you in community through a shared story that helps them. You don't have to do this on your own. when you hear that bad news, you don't have to do this by yourself. And I get that from you when you talk about your journey in your book, that is kind of a part of your message to people listening is no matter what news comes your way, you don't have to face this by yourself. Don't think that it's up to you to come up with the answers and be your own motivation. There's somebody out there that can help you. So do life in community. Is that kind of the idea for the book as well?
Yes, I love that. And I want to, if I can add to that, I want to tell all of you to be open. Be open. So even if it's not your MO to ask for help, or be open to it. When someone offers, they're not just doing it, for, reasons. They're doing it because they want to. So stay open to it. Absolutely.
I love it. And the idea, too, that this wasn't a race from Canada to Mexico to see who's first. That wasn't the idea for this. It was a personal challenge that you have to do on your own. Again, there's probably been a lot of lonely days on the bike where there's no one else around because you're at different stages than someone else. And you're looking around like, I'm running my own race right now. But there's still community around me. I can't see them right now, but there is still community that are hoping and wishing for me to do well, right, on the journey.
Oh my gosh, yes. And that's so, we were all kind of on individual journeys together. And the wonderful thing about that is like you said, there were days where there wasn't anyone around and almost like you think you're the only one in the world. And then all of a sudden, a couple people are waiting for you at a beautiful overlook, ready to have lunch. And, so it was really incredible. And it was such a metaphor for life in so many ways.
Yeah. And I just think too, like I'm visualizing your trip as we talk. And as you mentioned, coming up around the corner and they're parked there waiting for you to have lunch. It's like, there's someone who's like me in the moment, right? You're on the same journey that I'm on. There's familiarity there. There's someone that is doing the thing that I'm doing. And that's what I love about your book, is that it's about helping somebody else who as well has a diagnosis that they feel alone on their ride. There's no one else like them.
Yeah.
I come around that corner and there's Risa standing there waiting for me, wanting to connect with me and help me through a shared story and a shared journey. I feel like I'm connected to you, and I'm not alone now in that moment. Even though a lot of my wrestling with my diagnosis feels like I'm alone, there's someone like you out there that I can find inspiration from. And that's why I'm so glad you wrote the book, because now it's not just a moment in time when you rode your bike from one place to another and the story's over. That's just the beginning of the story, right? Now we have this in our hands that we can now find encouragement and inspiration for our own journey through you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Yes. And it is so true. Diagnosis and chronic illness or whatever adverse, like sometimes it can feel like it's the loneliest place, and you're not alone. Just as you said, like,
yeah,
there's people out there that want to help or understand or, are there.
So for you, Risa, when you early days of your diagnosis and finding out that your life is going to be considerably different, what would a book like The Road Unpaved meant to you when you had that early diagnosis? If this book was handed to you, what would you have found in here that would have given you comfort or inspiration?
Gosh, yeah, I feel a little emotional again. Well, thinking back to my diagnosis, and even before that, when I was trying to figure out what was going on in my body, I kept finding were just very medical terms, medical information. It was all very scientific based. And I was noticing there was no human factor. There was no reality of it all. It was just kind of all science. And my goal is to bring the human element of like, yeah, I can tell you everything that's happening on this educational science basis, but what about the mental and emotional parts of it? That's not really addressed out there. And so it was important for me to address that in my book.
Was there any kind of scary moments on the trip where something happened during your ride and you were fearful? I can't imagine riding a bike just like on the road with cars and traffic and all of that. Like there had to be moments where like a big truck goes whooshing by and you're just like wobbling all over the place. Like, was there any moments where you were a little fearful on your journey?
Oh, yeah. I don't want to give too much away, but yes, if any of you listeners have been on the Pacific Coast Highway, there's some pretty sketchy parts where there's no guardrail and it's a sheer drop off. And there's very little, maybe 2 foot wide shoulder.
Wow.
And so you're trying to ride the white line and not get too close to the edge. Meanwhile, there's massive RVs and semis whizzing past, and they have a almost like this backdraft that like sucks you over. But if you want to make sure you don't overcorrect too much, because then you're going to go over the cliff. So, there was definitely some pretty gnarly moments out there for sure.
What did you have to tap into to stay motivated, to address your fears, to keep riding, keep pedaling? Where did you have to go mentally to continue this journey?
What's new for me is allowing the emotions to come. So if I needed to cry for a moment, I allowed those tears. I allowed that release. And then I brought myself back to focus. Like, okay, deep breath. Like, here we go. What's your goal? What's your purpose? And that continued to evolve over the trip as well. I might have said at the Canadian border, okay, I just need to get to the Mexican border. And then that changed and evolved along the way. And so it really forced me to be in the moment and really focus on the road right in front of me and not, 5 weeks ahead or 6 weeks ahead to the Mexican border. I just had to see what was right in front of me.
How does that relate to your health journey then? The same thing, same question.
Yes. I have to say day by day, right? If days where I'm going to feel magnificent and on top of the world, and then I'm going to have days that feel impossible or nearly impossible. And all I have to do is focus on each moment, like right in front of me. And instead of focusing on what I can't do, I ask myself, well, what can I do? And it might be waking up, getting out of bed, brushing my teeth. Or it might be, oh my gosh, let's get dressed and let's go out for a bike ride.
No.
But step by step.
I love it. Okay, so Risa, we talked about this before we hit record, that maybe someone listening to this episode today is going to be going into a doctor's appointment today. A lot of unknown things going to be floating around in their mind as they go in there. They're nervous. They're on edge. They don't know what's going to be told to them about their diagnosis, or they're driving home from a recent diagnosis back to home and they feel really alone in this moment. A, how is your book going to help them? And B, what is your message to them right now? What do you want to say to them? What do they need to hear?
Yeah. Well, going back to you're not alone, and reach out to those supportive people or community and communities in your life. Ask a ton of questions. Look for those answers, whether you get online and Google them or talk to your doctor. Ask questions. And if something doesn't feel right with you or doesn't sit well, challenge it. It might not be the right path for you. And gosh, yeah. I just want to say you're not alone, even when you think you are. I remember, oh gosh, I'm getting emotional again. I remember finding cheerleaders in places I didn't even realize I had them. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Very unexpected to have that audience cheering you on when you weren't even anticipating it, right?
Yeah.
A good feeling.
Really good feeling. And initially I have to say it was hard to accept at first. And then and over time I opened myself up to that. And now it's the first thing I do.
I love it. So yeah, your book can become that cheerleader for us as we read through this, right?
Yeah.
Cheering us on, giving us the power to move forward, helping us to be inspired. All of that is within the pages of your book. So again, had you not written this, A, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And B, the people that read your book wouldn't have this as a way to keep motivated through some really tough times. So what is some of the responses you've heard back from people who have gone through the book, heard your story? What encourages you as an author to get out and talk about this book?
Yes. Well, gosh, I've heard so many incredible things, which makes me cry every time. But I've heard, people are getting things from it or resonating with it in ways I didn't even like. It didn't even cross my mind. You know, they're like, oh my gosh, I got this from it, or this really resonated with me. And what I hear all the time is I couldn't put it down. I read it cover to cover. I hear, like, I love the humor you added to your book. I love that you called that you named your tumor Bubba.
Bubba.
And so those are some of the incredible things I've heard, and just how much it really resonates to people, and they were able, whether they have a diagnosis or not, they were able to translate it into their own lives.
It's amazing. Okay, so one thing we're going to do, which I'm really excited about here at the end, is you volunteered to read a little portion of your book to us. To hear an author read their own book to us is like joy times 10. I love hearing that. So before we do that, though, Risa, as far as how to get the book and how to connect with you, and I'm anticipating people want you to come and be a speaker at their event, share your story, share your book. There's people listening to the show that are looking for amazing people like you to come and share with their audience. So as far as connecting with you, your website, all that stuff, if you can kind of give us that overview before you share a portion of your book with us, how do we get in touch with you and where's the book available?
Oh, yes. Thank you. And so you can find me at risaaugust.com. That's RISA, August, just like the month.com. I have an author page there, which has a whole list of purchasing options because I know people like to support organizations and companies in different ways. So I wanted to offer that option. And you also have your pick of paperback, ebook, or audiobook. And I actually narrate it in my audiobook.
Okay, so that's amazing. Amazing. So we're going to get a taste of the audiobook here as we end off the podcast. Risa, please, can you share a little bit for us?
Sure. I just wasn't going to spread awareness with my ride. I was going to spread hope. It wasn't just me doing this for me, or to be contrary to some doctor who thought he knew my life and my body better than me. I was doing this ride for all the people at this conference who had acromegaly or any condition that made them feel like their life's course had just been completely detoured, who felt like they'd never get back on track again. Oh my God, I thought. Maybe I can make an impact. maybe my actions can really inspire someone to take action. It'd be a shame if you let them down, said Bubba. I'd never truly looked at it this way before. I was just getting up and doing what I had to do for myself. Because for me, it was either get back on my bike and live, or stay on the couch in my purple hoodie and gray sweatpants and die. I wanted to live bigger and better than before. And damn it, I was going to live.
So, there you go. So if that doesn't make you want to buy the book or get to download the audio book, come on, people. This is what we need to do. We need to support a great author. Like Risa, it's so great having you here on the podcast. Thank you for making time for us and sharing your story. Can you give us an update? Where are you in your health journey today?
I am still living with Bubba, and we're trying to get him and the disease he causes under control, but it hasn't stopped me in any way. I'll be riding my bike across northern Spain in a couple months and moving on to other things from there. So, yeah, doing it. We're doing it together.
Well, thank you for making time to do this with us today. And I'm encouraging everyone to go out and support you and your book. Again, The Road Unpaved, Border to Border with a Brain Tumor and a Bike. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening all the way to the end of the podcast. That's a big signal to all of the players, the YouTubes, the Apples, the Spotifys, that you found value in this episode of Living the Next Chapter. Just by you listening to the end, you just sent a huge bat signal out to the app saying this was a great podcast, a great conversation. So you listening to this point, you've done your job. I have one more ask of you. If you know anyone that would benefit from this conversation, would you share this episode with them? Would you just get on, send them a message, send them the episode, tell them about this episode, tell them to go livinginthenextchapter.com to get all the information about the podcast. Can you do that for me? Because the more people that hear this message, this episode, the better. I want to support these amazing authors. And I know you do as well. So sharing this episode really helps. And I appreciate you. See you on the next episode, and thank you for listening to Living the Next Chapter.